Hey Bat fans, welcome back to Room 237, and I figure since in my last video I went over Tom King's Batman Volume 13, City of Bane Part 2, which wraps up Tom King's 4-year run of Batman from Rebirth to DC Universe. I figured why not just do one sort of retrospective look at all of his volumes, especially since I don't think I started reviewing these Batman books up until about volume 9. I think that was when I actually started the channel, was around that time. So I haven't got to talk really about any of these books. So I finally wrapped up my review for that, so why not start with volume 1, just kind of give a quick opinion of each one. Maybe at some point I will do like an individual review of each volume. But I will say this is probably my least favorite run of Batman. And I don't just mean like series or group of books, but like a main title volume run. Started back in 2016 with DC's new reboot launch of Rebirth, where they were going to combine post-crisis and New 52 continuities. And Tom King was going to be given 100 issues to tell his story, but somewhere down the line, I think it was just a mixture of reception and just where his story was heading. DC decided to cut his run by 15 issues, only giving him 85. Because it does get to a point where his run is very tedious, meandering. There is a lot of filler, not just issues, but filler volumes. And so he really had to hurry and rush to complete his story in the last 2 volumes. But anyway, some of my least favorite Batman books or volumes are in this run. I remember when I first came across Rebirth, the first 5 volumes were out. I bought all 5 at once, and I kind of read right through them. I made the mistake of reading this before the New 52 just because I bought them first. So, don't do that. But, yeah, even then, this was not a favorite run of mine. Especially with the earliest of the volumes. For a while, they ranged from really bad to mediocre, boring, and disappointing at best. But, so we have Volume 1, I Am Gotham. Volume 2, I Am Suicide. Volume 3, I Am Bane. And then this is actually a crossover in between 3 and 4, but Batman and Flash, The Button, which has 2 issues of Batman, 2 from The Flash, so The Button. Volume 4, The War of Jokes and Riddles, which I was expecting to be very good. Volume 5, The Rules of Engagement. And then somewhere at this point, they dropped the Rebirth banner, and I think now it was just DC Universe. Volume 6, Bride or Burglar. And then this isn't even Tom King. I just keep it with the run because it's all related to everything in Tom King's run. But Preludes to the Wedding, which is just a collection of one-shots, which actually, up until this point, this is one of the better books, Preludes to the Wedding. Volume 7, The Wedding, and I remember this was literally built up over the course of 4 volumes, which probably equals around 6 to 8 months. Volume 8, Cold Days. Volume 9, Tyrant Wing. Volume 10, Nightmares, which I know I've reviewed this one. I can't remember. I think I've done the Tyrant Wing. I think this was the first of the run that I actually reviewed. Tyrant Wing, Nightmares, Volume 11, The Fall and the Fallen, 12, City of Bane Part 1, and finally 13, City of Bane Part 2. Alright, so I'm probably not going to go over what each of these volumes are about, because to be honest, I really don't remember. And for a good chunk of these, there's a whole lot of nothing that happens, but I will say Volume 1, I Am Gotham, is one of my least favorite Batman books that I've ever read. I found it to be actually rather boring. I really did not care for the characters of Gotham and Gotham Girl. I really liked the look of the Batmobile, which this one was drawn by David Finch. And I actually think Scott Snyder helped write the first issue of this. But, yeah, even back then, it just felt like there was a lot going on. And then the whole thing of... This really started the whole, like, Batman wanting a good death. And this run, more than other ones, the whole because he's Batman and can pull off anything, it gets really ridiculous to the point of being laughable. Like, being able to stop a crashing building by using explosives to kind of propel it in the right direction. And Gotham and Gotham Girl sort of having this sense of humor and having powers like Superman. I just really did not care for this book. I thought it was really boring, and I didn't think it was just a very good starting point. 2, I Am Suicide, I actually liked even less. I always call this I Am Inception, just because of the layers of plans that are in this book. You know, he has to go to Santa Prisa, where Bane is, so he can save Psycho Pirate, or steal Psycho Pirate so he can save Gotham Girl. He has to put together his Suicide Squad with Ventriloquist, Catwoman, Bronze Tiger, Punch and Julie. And just every plan in this book, like, every plan sort of goes wrong, and the hidden plan B has to take place. You watch the further up Saw movies with, like, now how did they expect that to happen? Those are the sort of plans that are in this. That's why I call it I Am Inception. Only without dreams, it's just plans and plan Bs. And then we learned that I Am Suicide because Bruce Wayne has wanted to commit suicide since he was 8 years old when his parents were killed. And Batman is sort of his way of committing suicide because he'll die eventually. And yeah, this is probably my least favorite book of the whole run. I couldn't wait to get through this. I did not like it at all. This one is probably still my favorite. 3, I Am Bane, where Bane retaliates and goes to fight Batman in Gotham. Which, and it's juxtaposed between the origin of Bane and the origin of Bruce Wayne becoming Batman, how they have the same childhood, with Bane being a child in this prison, having to fend for himself and try to survive, just being in this cell that fills up with the tide. And Bruce having all this love and care while he trains himself. So, like, Bane is training himself out of survival with no love. Bruce is training himself because he wants to become this Batman figure. But he has a comfortable home, a loving butler. I found that juxtaposition interesting, and that's probably still why it's my favorite of this whole series. Then, of course, at the end is when he proposes to Catwoman. And then the Button, I don't really remember much of. So, I mean, it's an alright story. I actually read this way out of place because I skipped the Button when I first read it through. This one is the most disappointing because this is the one that I was really looking forward to. Joker and Riddler, my two favorite villains. Bane is my third favorite villain. Joker and Riddler are at war with each other. Bruce Wayne and Batman both have to choose a side. Both Riddler and Batman, both Riddler and Joker choose their own armies of the Rogues Galleries. And just, it doesn't really pay off that well. It's not very interesting. It's a very disappointing story. But the seeds of a very awesome story are still prevalent throughout the entire story, which is very frustrating. This is the most disappointing and frustrating, at least for me. I also don't really like the look of Riddler throughout this series, which is strange because in Volume 3, when we first see Riddler, I do like the look of him. And he actually reminds me a lot of Jim Carrey from Batman Forever. Like, he still has the sort of sideburns, but he doesn't have the slicked back hair that he does throughout the rest of Rebirth. Like, he goes from looking like that to... let me just find a good page first. Oh yeah, and he carves a question mark into his torso. Oh, why did I just do this earlier? Oh, here we go. Yeah. And he's always, like, got his shirt undone. Yeah, very disappointing story. Wasn't very pleased once I got through with that. And then here we just begin the cycle of building up this wedding for months. And this is literally just the boys, the Robins, finding out Bruce is engaged. And Bruce and Selina go to meet Talia to sort of get her blessing. And so Selina can fight her. That's all this book is. Boring, kind of tedious. Bride or Burglar, again, boring. Really starts feeling more like a filler. Because it's all about, she finds this dress. Do I steal it? Do I buy it? Am I a bride or a burglar? Then also these, they have a lot of issues that aren't really part of the main story. Like more sort of annuals or just really random feeling issues. Then Preludes to the Wedding, which, if this one had a very creepy story with Joker waiting at this guy's house for the mail for his invite to the wedding. Dick taking Bruce out for a bachelor party that's crashed by Hush. and actually I think it's I Am Bane that has the greatest Batman story ever told, which is when Batman and Superman go on a double date with Lois and Selena, but they go to a superhero themed carnival, but dressed as the opposite person. I actually really like that issue. Then, of course, The Wedding, which doesn't even happen at the very last page. And the very last panel shows Bane and all the other villains that we've seen throughout the run to show that, you know, him being left at the altar is the next step in the plan to breaking the Bat. I'll actually say I do like this one. This is one of those very slow, tedious filler volumes. But it's about Bruce being on jury duty, which I don't buy. But pretty much him trying to say that Batman is guilty of excessive force and brutality because he's upset about being left at the altar. Takes it out on Mr. Freeze because he thought Mr. Freeze was guilty of this murder, then realized he wasn't, and now feels guilty about it. So he's trying to get the jury to, like, just because you think he's good doesn't mean he really is. It does feel like a filler volume, but I thought it was more interesting. I'll put this up there with Volume 3 as, like, my second favorite. And Volume 9, The Tyrant Wing, I'd say this one was alright. All I remember from it would be Alfred and Penguin just sort of sharing poetry together. But here, this is just the next step of Batman seeming excessive and violent while Bane pretends to be this meek, frightened shell of himself. But Batman doesn't buy it. This one's still alright. It did feel like there was more to it than some of the other filler volumes. Nightmares is all filler. I mean, it is literally 61 to 63, then 66 to 69. All different nightmares that Batman has been induced with. I mean, some of them are pretty cool. Visually, like the one with Professor Pig. I just ripped that page. I'm glad I did that. But, yeah, it's mostly just filler. Like, do we really need that many nightmare issues? Not really. I don't remember if this was before or after it was announced that his run was cut. Fall in the Fallen. Yeah, I think this was when we find out that Flashpoint Batman is actually involved. I'm actually not sure when that was. It was before Nightmares, but either way, I really don't remember much from this at all. Go check out my review for it. But then, you know, everything kind of started coming to a head. He had to hurry to get it done. This one, I do remember seeing the potential, but still being disappointed by it. This, I kind of was disappointed. It did feel anticlimactic, but at the same time, he's trying to wrap up all his different subplots. And he was cut by 15 issues, so it is going to feel less climactic, more anticlimactic than originally, but I remember being more satisfied than I thought I was going to be with the end of it. So, yeah, I know this wasn't very in-depth, just kind of a quick go-through of what I thought of each, I almost said episode. Each volume, again, this one was my favorite of the of the run. This is the only one that I think is genuinely good. I would say Volume 8, Cold Days, is the runner-up, but that just being more interesting in concept. These two are still, without a doubt, two of the worst Batman books I've read. Obviously, next to, like, Dark Knight Strikes Again, All-Star, Fortunate Son, Odyssey. All the notoriously bad ones. Yeah, these two are just amongst my least favorite that I've ever read. I do not like these at all. And the rest is either just very boring to disappointing at best. But that's Tom King's run. Very excited to see what Tynion has to offer. Let me know what you thought about Tom King's run. I know some people say, as far as I'm concerned, it never happened. It doesn't exist. Well, it did. I'm sure there's going to be elements that will carry on in continuity forever. I mean, it went on for 85 issues. It's that headcanon stuff does not work. It happened. It existed. Deal with it. I have to, but Tom King's Batman run, it's my least favorite run. Thank you for watching.